Here is Sheila Skolnick.
Thank you all for spending a very wonderful and time here with me. I'm going to talk to you about how I started with no money, no knowledge, no connections, and I grew it into a multi-million dollar company, and I sold it to a $6 billion business.
That's what we want to hear.
So the reason I tell my story is because people always go, I can't because of this and because of that. And so I tell my story, and you know, it's like not an opinion, I did it. And the reason I started my business was to feed my children. So then I said, why don't I just go out and sell full of brush door to door? So I did. I knocked on doors and I went in the house and I polished the table and I said, and after a while, it was so exciting. I had money, not big money, but I had money, something that was mine, and I didn't have to have the stress. And so I just kept going in that vein. I decided one day that I wonder what it feels like to sell in Manhattan. You know, I said how it felt. So I took myself and I got up at 4 in the morning and I went into the city because I wanted to be there first so I can check it out. And I remember coming up the escalator of Penn Station, and it landed me on 7th and 33rd, and I looked across the street and I saw this hotel. And what I did when I sold to hotels on Long Island, I used to count the number of windows at the hotels. This way I knew how to price them for what their paper supplies were going to be, how much chemicals they needed. So it automatically went, and I started counting windows. And then when I realized when that hotel wrapped around the corner, as it did, I said, I am going to sell to these hotels. I don't know how. I just don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to sell. Because I looked at it, and I remember saying to myself, there are money in them there hills. And you know, I went into the hotels, and the first thing I did is they kicked me out. And they kicked me out, kicked me out, kicked me out. It actually took me a solid year till I got my first hotel. And I used to see 13 hotels. Each day I went to the city, and I was only able to go in 2 days a week. Because the day I was in the city, and then I had to go back to my office and figure out A to Z, and then I used to be still selling supplies in Long Island, you know, keeping the money flowing as little as it was. And as I was going door to door to hotels, I was learning about the business. I mean, really learning, because I didn't know what's what. And so I learned what they needed even more than they learned, more than they knew. And after a while, I became like, who knows how? I became the consultant to the 4- and 5-star hotels. And they used to have me come in, and they used to go, oh, Mrs. Skolnick, so good to see you. And they used to kiss the hand. That was the old world European general managers but I worked hard. There's certain things that I did bring to the industry that did not exist before me. I created the iron and the ironing board in the guest room closet. So you say, how did I come up with that? I used to do 17 trade shows a year across the country. And I remember when it used to be like, I was in a Sheraton in Chicago, there was thousands of rooms. And I used to always ask for an ironing board the day before, because there's no way they're going to get it to you that day. And I used to take and go, thank you very much, give a tip and put it under the bed, because I needed it for all 4 days that I was there. And then I'm thinking, you know, if it's a problem for me, it's got to be a problem for a lot of people. And not only that, the hotel has to be getting endless complaints and complaints. So I did calculations. I found out how many housemen were working just to bring these things up and down. So I calculated how much money that cost. And then I calculated how much complaints they were getting. And then I calculated what the cost of the ironing board, and I went to operations, introduced myself, and by then they weren't kicking me out, because by then they knew me. like I said, became a consultant. So I went to the Plaza Hotel, and I went in there and I saw crystal chandeliers, and I saw velvet green stanchion covers, a whole bunch of stuff. And I walked into purchasing and I said, Susie, what's with this dark all over the place? And she says, don't you know the hotel was purchased? I says, who purchased the hotel? I haven't been here. I mean, I've been away 2 weeks. He said, the Trumps did. I said, aha, aha. So I went back to my office and I wrote a letter. Dear Mrs. Trump, congratulations on your new property. Your property, as you know, is a historical 4-star property. However, with how you're treating it, with your decor, you will be losing the value of your investment. I get a phone call the next day. I sent it that day. It got there the next day, so I got a phone call the next day from Steve Kaplan, the director of purchasing. He says, Mrs. Trump wants to speak to you. So I said, oh, you know, I'll be happy to come, but I can't come this week. It's next week. And I saw smoke coming. He says, what are you talking about? I says, I can't. So why couldn't I go? Because I had to go stand on the street. And I could only go in the city Tuesday and Thursday because I had my obligations to my customers, whatever. And I stood on the corner so I could see how the ladies were dressed because I had to mirror. I didn't know anything about her ilk. I knew about 4-star, 5-star hotels. I knew how to mirror in that fashion and how to be. In other words, people buy from people they know, like, and trust, the same thing. So I figured out that I was going to wear a emblem suit, you know, that comes out like that. And at that time, they wore these little cloth flowers on that. So I got all suited up and I felt confident. And when I went in to see her, she opens the door. She was wearing the same flower. And to any rate, I proceeded to do many millions of dollars with them, and they did pay their bills. And was
I don't know.
I do, believe me, I do. And so, anyway, so I grew the company big. I worked very, very hard. I love my employees. I love my manufacturers, and so they came along and they bought me, and so now I teach and train people how to do what I do. I have coaching clients, and I have mastermind groups, and I love to speak, and I love audiences that laugh.